exceptionally fortunate. You talk about serendipity or the universe just making itself open, conspiring with you. 11 years ago, I jumped out of corporate. My languaging is that I bungee jumped. Purely because, I mean, I talk about it now, but I had no idea where I was going to go to. My life had been, when I was matriculating, just while we were waiting for our matric results, my mum and dad, coming from an Italian family, called me to the dining room table. And when that happened, a deathly hush happened in the family at the same time, because you knew something was about to befall. And they sat me down and they said, well, there's no other way to let me know this, but there's no money for university in January. And this was the beginning of December. My whole world literally fell apart because I was going to go and study law. And unlike you, I went into victim mode. And it was, well, my life is ended. That's it. Where do I go? So I then joined a now defunct hotel group called the Caros Group of Hotels. And I worked my way through that, having left the front of house manageress at 20, which had never ever happened in the 50 years of the hotel group. And from there went into corporate and was the right-hand person, because that's what I felt comfortable. I am the eldest of 5. I can be the sergeant major. I can get people to do what they're supposed to do. So from there, it was just really good organizing other people's lives. And I got to the point in 2004 where I was organizing lives, co-organizing people's lives. But I don't think I ever stopped long enough to ask if this is what I had really and truly chosen for myself. I did know that I was pushed, and that's what it felt like. This external force that pushed me to keep on going. Because by that stage, I had created a certain lifestyle for myself. But equally knew that in the very, very core of me, I was quite dead. So 2004 in January, I'll always remember that date. It was the 15th of January, and that's because it's my baby brother's birthday. And just in parentheses, I think when a baby brother at 41 still gets called a baby brother, he takes umbrage to that, but he is still my baby brother. So I bungee jumped. It took me 6 months to find the courage to leave that stability of what I had known. And I was driving home the last day of work, and a girlfriend of mine phoned and she said, Jay, you're into this woo-woo kind of stuff, you know, this hocus-pocus kind of stuff. I'm going to a lecture. I don't even know how to pronounce this word. It starts with an A and it ends with an E. I think it's your kind of stuff. Come and listen. So I went off to a lecture on archetypes and sat there and thought, they're talking to me. They're talking about me. And I could just feel my body just shrinking lower and lower into the chair, because it just felt like whatever archetype they brought to the conversation, and the disempowered part of the archetype, that was me. So I signed up for a year program to learn the archetype. And what I learned through that process, and still learn today, and it gives me delight letting you know that my crown falls off my head at least once a day. So it doesn't matter how erect I sit, it still falls off, because I'm still human. And I'm still learning this domain of what it is to be a queen. But what I learned through that process is that in a personal context, I do archetypically carry the queen. It has been, and that is how we would discover it, and that's how we'll play with it a little bit later. It is through the repeated patterns in your life that you recognize the archetypes that you hold. So, although I hadn't labeled myself a queen, I behaved like one. And not a very nice one at that. So when it came to being in the place of introspection and I looked back into my corporate life, thank God that we have the grace to blush. Because I did, and I thought, gosh, I just beheaded people every day. I just lashed out with my tongue. And the more learning and the more becoming aware of who I am, the more I realize that our queen, the innate queen energy in us, when she lashes out, it's because she is feeling disempowered. We are giving away our personal power to somebody. They're pressing something in us. So if you can imagine that we have an elevator facade, and there are 12 different buttons because we all have 12 different archetypes. And when something goes awry, somebody has pressed a button. And the way that my queen archetype lives, she lives right next door to my victim. So whenever I'm feeling a little unsure of who I am, and I believe that the world, my audience, is questioning who I am, I can actually feel her. She just embodies my body. All of a sudden, I become the worst part of her. I become very haughty. All of a sudden, my children take the piss out of me because I start speaking with this strange British accent. I've evoked and invoked the Queen, but I actually feel her. And I just notice that she comes out, and all of a sudden I use language that the universe must have channeled through me, because I didn't even know that that word even existed. But I feel her. So through that process, and thank heavens I have amazing colleagues and girlfriends in my life, and in 2008 I was working extensively with BHP Billiton and their leadership program, and whenever there was a facilitation program, BHP would always ensure that there were 2 facilitators in front of the room. Primarily just from a place of energy to hold the room. There were about 30 senior leaders that we would work with over a 5-day period, and you would work for 16 hours a day. So you needed, and the different energy, the different play of people. And it was day 1, and Alison and I got to play as co-facilitators for the first time. We'd never ever met. We hadn't even seen each other's CV. We had no idea. We just met at breakfast, and she said, "Hi, I'm Alison." I went, "Hi, I'm Juanene." She said, "What do you want to know about me?" I said, "I don't know, insights, DISC, give me some kind of assessment tool that I can kind of box you." And she went, "Okay, extrovert, yellow." And I just thought, right, give me strength. And I said, "Well, I'm red, introvert." And she went, "This should go down really well." So we still to today facilitate together, but at the end of day 1 she called me over and she said, "So are you ready to have a cup of coffee?" And she looked at me, she said, "Well, maybe we should have a glass of wine so that I can give you feedback." And at that moment I just felt my shoulders stiffen and the Queen just come into my body, and I thought, right, I'm ready for you. And she said, "You've got to know that your name from here on out is Queen J." So Queen Jin, Queen J, my crown still falls off every single day of my life. I have just learned to work with her and to have a sense of kindness to myself, so that she really doesn't have to lop off people's heads, that she can be a lot more benevolent, because there's a time and a place for her in all of us.
The more we hear the stories of the women who have taken the risks, the women who have taken that seat on the rocket ship, the more we as the emerging leaders are likely to do so. And I think that's a great lesson there.
So hence, from the place of archetypes, the Queen archetype is there as both our empowered and disempowered relationship relative to power. That's why she's there. So when we are unable to recognize the innate power that we have, we make her into a disempowered part of us. So I'm sure there's not a single person in the room that hasn't heard of Brené Brown. Okay, so I'm looking at Liesel. Or maybe there is. So Brené Brown, a PhD student, scholar, speaks to the place of vulnerability. Now for me, holding the queen archetype is to recognize that we have a place of vulnerability. That is what makes us so damn powerful, that we don't have to know it all. That we can, on a list of 10 things, go, damn, I can do one, and I can do it exceptionally well. And go to the interview and embody the empowered side of the queen and speak with authenticity and vulnerability and position yourself, not sell yourself, because the queen would never sell herself. You position yourself and you are bought like a brand is bought. A brand is never ever sold, ever. A product is sold. As a queen, you are not a product. You are a brand of your own. And it's the manner in which you present yourself that people buy you. And they go, well, don't worry about those other 9 things. We just love the fact that you are great at FX. It doesn't matter that you've never ever been a leader. And I think that is where we as women get it so wrong. We nitpick. You know, I was reading the most beautiful book the other day, and it says that the problem with women is that we ruminate. The only other animal that ruminates is a cow. It masticates, it just chews on and on and on. Well, we tend to do that because we see one thing, we see something around leadership and we go, I don't know, I don't think I can do that thing. I think your language, Neha, was, I didn't believe that I was visionary enough. Who the hell that said leadership equals visionary? Maybe leadership is I lead me first. And because of that, I can therefore lead others. And maybe it's just about knowing today and tomorrow. So I think archetypically, us as women create that disempowered space, that we become the lady in waiting. And then also what happens is if the doors are never ever opened, we go into this silent phase of resentment. You know, those of you that have partners, darling, what's wrong? Nothing. No, but really, darling, I can see something's wrong. No, it's fine. Just leave it, it's fine. So we bring that on ourselves. You know, I think the one thing that every woman in this room can do is one thing today and every other day. Look at another woman and recognize her. Acknowledge her. Again, I'm going to use my daughters. They despair of me because I'm the person randomly in a shopping queue will look at another woman and go, oh my God, do you know how beautiful you look today? And my children just go, oh Lord, we can't do this. We're never coming shopping with you again. But how amazing. I love beauty. I do. And if another woman is beautiful, why does she only need to hear that from a man? Why can another woman not recognize her? So it is up to us as queens to be able to allow other women to step out of the ladies in waiting, to take their place of being queens. And we start our queendom in our own home, in our domains, in our families. And when you feel like you're getting it right there, you expand. I think Hema started this morning by saying we're going to have a conversation. And that's one thing that I've noticed, that men and women do exceptionally differently. Men, and for the men in the room, please pardon me, But men will speak at the urinal. What am I saying? Men speak constantly with one another. They share. Women, we go into silo mentality. We don't cross-pollinate. We don't talk about, so I have this amazing idea, I'm going to share it with you, because we are so filled with our own state of insecurities. So I hear what you're saying about engineering, and I hear it with so many other conversations. The tipping point is coming, and we can go to Harvard Business Review, we can go to McKinsey's, we can go to Bain, we can go to so many reports that are being done. The time is almost here where there are going to be more women in power in senior roles than there are men, because there are more girl children being born. And it is about not being afraid to say to a colleague or a friend, there are only 3 seats at the table. It's about, bloody hell, we are 15. What are we going to do collectively to create a new table? Let them sit at their table and let them come and want to sit with us. But we don't do that. We just try and wriggle ourselves in and go, is there a place for me? No. It's about, this is my table, would you care to join me? And we don't think like that. And that is what we're needing to do as women. We're needing to make it happen for us by being in conversation with each other. Because at the end of the day, women are the best problem solvers. That's just how our brains are wired. And I think for me, when you are in your queen archetype and you own her authentically, somehow she exists in the world with grace. So when you can raise your hand and you say, pick me, choose me, I'm ready, it comes across with the strength of grace. And your crown stays on your head, of course.